Imagine a tradition where a bride's worth is measured by her purity. And the honor of her family depends on her chastity. In many parts of Africa, especially in the past, virginity was more than just a personal choice. It was a symbol of morality, discipline, and family pride. Before marriage, some communities conducted virginity tests to ensure the bride's chastity, with significant rewards for those who passed and harsh consequences for those who didn't. What were these practices, and what did they mean for young women and their families? Let's uncover the traditions, tests, and cultural significance of virginity in Africa. In traditional African societies, virginity was considered one of the highest virtues a young woman could possess. It symbolized discipline, moral upbringing, and adherence to cultural and religious values. For many families, their daughter's virginity was a matter of pride, representing their success in raising her with strong moral foundations. The status of a virgin bride was particularly important in communities where family honor was tied to a woman's chastity. A young woman's purity often reflected not just on her, but also on her family, especially her mother, who was typically tasked with instilling moral values in her children. In many cases, a family whose daughter was discovered to be a virgin was seen as one with high moral standards, earning them respect and prestige in their community. Virginity was also closely linked to marriage and fertility. It was believed that a virgin bride brought blessings to her marriage and increased the likelihood of a prosperous union. Many believed that a chaste bride would ensure the favor of the gods or ancestors, which was crucial for the continuation of a family's lineage. To verify a bride's chastity, various communities practiced virginity testing. While these practices were more common in the past, they continue to exist in some regions today. In some African societies, elderly women or traditional midwives were responsible for conducting virginity tests. These women were believed to have the experience and wisdom to determine if a young woman was a virgin. The process often involved examining the hymen for signs of rupture. It was believed that an intact hymen indicated virginity, although modern science has since proven that the hymen can break for reasons unrelated to sexual activity. One of the most well-known practices was the use of a white cloth during the wedding night. After consummating the marriage, the bride and groom would present a white cloth, stained with blood, as proof of the bride's virginity. This practice was common in parts of Nigeria and other African countries. If the cloth showed blood, it was a cause for celebration. Drumming, dancing, and feasting would follow, with the bride's family receiving praise for raising a chaste daughter. However, if there was no blood, it could result in shame, disappointment, and even punishment for the bride and her family. In some communities, virginity was believed to be connected to physical vigor. Young women might be asked to participate in dances or rituals that tested their stamina and flexibility. While this was less direct than physical examinations, it was a symbolic way of assessing their purity and readiness for marriage. In some East African communities, a ritual involving water was used to test virginity. The bride-to-be might be asked to carry a calabash of water on her head and walk a specific distance without spilling it. Successfully completing the task was considered a sign of chastity and moral discipline. In tight-knit communities, everyone knew everyone's business. A young woman's behavior and reputation were often scrutinized, with community elders or peers acting as informal testers. If a woman was known to engage in behavior deemed inappropriate, she might face challenges during marriage negotiations. The consequences of failing a virginity test varied by community, but were often severe. In societies where virginity was closely tied to family honor, the loss of chastity before marriage could lead to public disgrace for the woman and her family. The entire community might ostracize the family, and they could lose their standing in the social hierarchy. A bride who failed the virginity test risked being rejected by her groom. In many African cultures, a bride's virginity was a prerequisite for marriage. If a woman failed the test, the groom could refuse to marry her, leaving her family humiliated and potentially without the bride price that had been negotiated. In extreme cases, a woman who failed the test might face punishment, such as beatings or being sent away from her home. This was particularly true in patriarchal societies where women were expected to uphold strict moral codes. If the marriage proceeded despite the failed test, the bride price dowry might be significantly reduced, signaling a loss of value in the eyes of the groom's family. Beyond societal consequences, failing a virginity test could have a lasting emotional and psychological impact on the woman, leaving her with feelings of guilt, shame, and unworthiness. Virginity was not just a personal virtue, but also a cultural and spiritual symbol. In many African traditions, marriage was considered sacred, and the bride's purity was thought to ensure the blessings of the gods or ancestors. Virginity was also tied to fertility. It was believed that a chaste bride would have a stronger connection to her husband and the spiritual forces overseeing their union, leading to a prosperous and fertile marriage. For the groom's family, marrying a virgin bride was a source of pride, as it was believed to guarantee the legitimacy of future children. This was especially important in communities where lineage and inheritance were central to family structures. In modern times, virginity testing has become a topic of debate. While some communities continue to uphold these practices as a way of preserving cultural heritage, others have criticized them for being invasive, outdated, and harmful. Critics argue that virginity testing places the burden of chastity solely on women, often ignoring the behavior of men. Organizations such as the World Health Organization, WHO, have condemned virginity testing as a violation of women's rights, calling for its elimination worldwide. As African societies modernize and adapt to global influences, the significance of virginity has evolved. While some families still value it as a mark of moral upbringing, others prioritize education, character, and mutual compatibility in marriage over chastity. Education has played a significant role in shifting perspectives on virginity traditions. Many young women are now empowered to make their own choices about their bodies and relationships, challenging traditional norms that prioritize virginity over individuality. Non-governmental organizations, NGOs, and advocacy groups have also worked to raise awareness about the harmful effects of virginity testing, promoting gender equality and reproductive health rights across Africa. Virginity has held immense cultural, spiritual, and social significance in African traditions, especially in the past. While the value placed on chastity has brought honor and pride to families, it has also subjected women to invasive practices and harsh consequences. As Africa continues to evolve, so do its traditions. While some communities work to preserve their heritage, others are re-examining practices that no longer align with modern values. The story of virginity in African culture is one of both reverence and resilience, reflecting the complex interplay between tradition and progress.